would give a big saluki welcome to Dr. Takanori Shibata. He's the inventor of Paro, which, as you know by now, is a form of artificial intelligence being used a lot in different kinds of avenues for healthcare and healthcare research. So without further ado, there it is, all yours.
Thank you very much, and also thank you for waiting a long time. And I'm Takanori Shibata, and I work for the Japanese Government Research Institute, National Institute of Advanced Industrial Science and Technology. And I'm a professor at the Tokyo Institute of Technology, and I'm a visiting fellow at the Age Lab MIT. And as for the title of my talk, it's Neurological Therapeutic Medical Robot, Paro, for non-pharmacological therapy. So first, I'll talk about the background of C-robot Paro. And Paro is a medical device certified by FDA as a neurological therapeutic device in biofeedback device. And now Paro has been used from children to elderly and also in variety of locations or fields. So I'll show some interesting cases. And we call it robot therapy, and Paro has been used in more than 30 countries now. So some of them are, of course, in the US, but I also introduced some cases in other countries. And in order to show the kind of benefit of Paro, there were a lot of clinical trials, including randomized controlled trials. So I'll briefly introduce some results of the randomized controlled trials to convince you. And also, some hospitals or even National Health Service in the UK, they evaluated the cleaning procedure for infection prevention control. And I'll briefly talk about it. So when we talk about robots in general, there are two types of robots. One is industrial robot. The other is service robot. And as for industrial robot, they are used at factories. But as for service robot, they are coming to our daily life. So it can be a domestic use, and also at hospitals, elderly facilities, and so on. But there are two types of services. One is a physical service. The other is mental or emotional service. As for the physical service, you may know about Roomba. So Roomba is a floor cleaning robot. So they work for us in our at home. And Paro is for mental or emotional service. Paro doesn't work on physical tasks. But Paro has a lot of benefit for the people psychologically or for the brain activities. And we have a lot of users in the case of elderly people. And also we have a lot of clinical trials in the case of elderly people. So first I'll talk about elderly society in general first. And but later I'll introduce the cases about children and adults. And as for the elderly, this is a map of the world. As for the blue color, darker blue color means higher ratio of the elderly people who are more than 65 years old. So as for Japan, we have very dark color. And in 2017, the percentage of the elderly people who are more than 65 years old in Japan is 27.7%. It's very high. I think the US is much lower. I think 13, 14% or so. But as for next lower map, it's in 2050. So most advanced countries are becoming aging society. So Europe, Japan, even North America, you have darker color. And as for Japan, we have about 127 million people as population. It's like half of the US. And as I said, about 28% of Japanese population is more than 65 years old. And a lot of people keep healthy conditions, but more and more people need some care at home or some facilities or institutions. And now, as for the population of Japan, it's decreasing. That means we have less and less younger people. So we expect to have shortage of manpower to take care of elderly people. So Japanese government have emphasis in improvement of such situations. And another issue is Alzheimer's disease. So, as for the number of the patients so far, they are estimated about 50 million people in the world in 2015. But the number is growing. So by 2030, it will become about 75 million people. And by 2050, it will become 130 million people. And as for the cost for medical and welfare service for elderly people with dementia, in 2018, it was estimated about $1 trillion US. It's huge cost. And by 2030, it will become about $2 trillion US. So it's huge cost. And now, a lot of pharmaceutical companies try to develop the medications for Alzheimer's disease, but most of them have already failed. They have failed at the phase 3 experimental trials, and a lot of companies stopped developing the medications for pharmaceuticals for Alzheimer's disease. And now technologies are trying to improve these kind of conditions. So there are some applications that AI or robotics can help or assist or improve the conditions. The first is health monitoring or checking. Second is assisting daily living. Third is assisting fall detection. Fourth is companionship. So Paro is here. And then fifth is anti-aging. It's for healthier people. And as for Japan, we had a lot of national projects to develop some technologies and robotics for the assistive technologies. So they are kind of images, but we already have developed some machines or some technologies which physically assist the caregivers or elderly people, and also some sensor systems. But the Paro is slightly different from them. So as you have already interacted with Paro, so you know what is Paro. But let me show you one video that how Paro can improve stress of the people in general. You know here. So first, the former President Mr. Obama interacted with human type. But he didn't have much interest in human type.
And also, it's been good for, especially for elderly people with dementia. They like to say, most of the children with autism or autism, they respond well. Yes.
And he had smiled, and also he quickly understood the purpose or role of Paro, because I think he knew animal therapy. Most of you know about animal therapy. And next person is former president of Russia, Mr. Medvedev, the current president of Russia. He had difficult face, but when he interacted with Paro, he improved his mood and he had a nice smile. So interaction with Paro can improve mood of the people and make people happier. So they are very important to have therapeutic effect. So when I started this research and development in 1993, so more than 25 years ago, and when I started the research, I investigated the research on animal therapy. So especially in the US, there are a lot of research papers on animal therapy, and also human-animal bond. And there are three kinds of benefit from animal to human beings. First is psychological merit. Interaction with animals cheer the people and motivate people. And second is physiological merit. Interaction with animals reduce stress of the people and also good for rehabilitation. Third is social merit. Interaction or existence of animals encourage communication among people. But there are some problems of having or owning real animals. Some people have allergy. Some people are afraid of bites and scratch. there is potential of infection from animal to human beings. And at some apartments, people are not allowed to have animals. And also at hospitals, nursing homes, and some facilities, it's very difficult to keep or manage animals there. Some places accept visitation, but it's really hard to manage animals at facilities. And it costs a lot. So for such places and for such people, I thought animal type robots would be very good for therapy. So I started to develop Paro. And the current Paro is 9th generation. Paro has many kinds of sensors and actuator systems. And as for the size, it's about 2 feet. And its weight is about 5.5 pounds. And the Paro has 3 microphones for speech recognition and sound localization. And Paro has 2 light sensors as simple vision. Paro doesn't have CCD camera because of privacy issue. And inside of Paro has posture sensor and temperature sensors. And whole body is covered by tactile sensors. So if you stroke Paro recognizes where and how you touch the body of Paro. And whiskers are sensors too. And as for the fur, it's made of acrylic blended with silver iron that can kill bacteria and virus. So it's for safety consideration. And Paro moves silently. So Paro has special actuator systems. And Paro has artificial intelligence. Especially Paro has 2 kinds of learning functions. So one is name, the other is behaviors. So if you give new name to Paro and call it again and again, Paro gradually learns the name and start to respond to the new name. And being stroked is good for Paro. So Paro tries to be stroked by the owner. So if Paro is shared by many people at facilities, so it's very difficult for Paro to learn what is the favorite behaviors for the people. But if Paro is owned by at home or individually, so Paro changed its characters to be like by the owners. And the model of the Paro is a baby harp seal. I visited Canada to interact with the real one, and the flying sound of Paro, they are all from seals. And the inside Paro has a lot of technologies. Maybe you don't have interest in them. But in order to introduce Paro in practical situations, especially in medical field, we needed to clear a lot of regulations for safety. And for example, Paro has the fur, which has antibacterial, hair loss prevention, soil resistant, and so on. And the Paro has electromagnetic shield, because some elderly people may have a pacemaker. And also, in order to use Paro at hospital situation, we have to consider such kind of regulations. And I designed Paro to be used for more than 10 years. So Paro is very robust and durable. But in the case of children with autism or some developmental problems, sometimes they don't know how to socialize with others. And sometimes they do something bad to Paro. So Paro have to cope with some strong force or some beating, something like that. So Paro needs to be very strong or robust. But at the same time, Paro should be very simple to be used by kind of ordinary people. So Paro has one switch to turn on and turn off. That's all. But of course, you have to feed Paro. So that is battery charger. So you can charge the battery through mouth, as inserting the pacifier into the mouth. So we had many kinds of tests to show such kind of robustness. And in Japan, we commercialized Paro in 2005. And we still have users who are using Paro since then. So that means people use Paro or live with Paro for more than 10 years. And Paro is handmade for its quality. So without being accepted, Paro doesn't have therapeutic effect. So quality is very important. For example, when you visit the factory of Paro, you'll find the slight difference of the face of Paro. So each Paro has different face from others. Our factory is located in Japan, and we have a good nature and also history. And we have a long history of good craftsmanship to produce something. So in the area, they produce Japanese paper for more than 1,200 years. And they have some decorated cloth with gold plate, silk fabric, woodcraft and so on. We still produce something with craftsmanship. So we adopted the same philosophy to produce Paro in the production. So Paro is a combination of art and technology. So in terms of art, Paro was exhibited at some museums like Louvre, MoMA in New York, some event in France, and some others. So this is Design Museum in London, Victoria and Albert Museum in London too. It's in Spain. And then in Illinois, in Chicago, there is a Science and Industry Museum. Yeah. And they exhibited Paro for a while as a robot evolution. And I had opportunities to exhibit Paro in many places. And I had questionnaires to the people. Basically, people have high value on Paro. And now Paro has been used in more than 30 countries, as I said. And Japan is the most. There are about 5,000, more than 5,000 units. And in Japan, there are 3,000 units. And there are some cultural differences. So in Japan, a lot of people bought Paro as pet, not therapeutic. So 50% of the users are like individuals, and 40% are like institutions. And as for Europe, Denmark was the first adopter. So they had a national project to evaluate Paro in dementia care. And they found, it was from 2006 to 2008, for 2 years. And they found Paro was very effective. And now more than 80% of municipalities, like local government, have already adopted Paro in dementia care first. Then facilities for people who have disabilities, like brain injury or some others. I'll show some pictures later. And other European countries also started to adopt Paro. But they are mostly for like therapeutic purpose. And in the US, in 2009, Paro was certified as a medical device. Since then, we have been introducing Paro in the US. So this is a certification of a medical device by FDA. So as I said, they categorize Paro as a neurological therapeutic device in biofeedback device. So biofeedback device is very important. So now, actually, in the case of elderly people, the Medicare started to accept reimbursement when Paro is prescribed for biofeedback therapy. So I'll explain about it later. So as a medical device, Paro has a therapeutic effect. So Paro can improve quality of life, anxiety, pain, depression, sleep, stress, loneliness, pressure, engagement, and so on. And Paro can improve communication and sociability. And Paro can reduce agitation, aggression, wandering of the people, dementia, PTSD, and so on. And also, as people do not have such negative behaviors, there is a risk, Paro reduce risk of falling, and also reduce burden of care for the people. And proportionally, we can expect to reduce a lot of psychotropic medications. So Paro can be used from children to elderly people. The first is a case at the pediatric hospital. So she has like a problem in breathing. So she has been at the hospital. But sometimes she has pain and also some negative behaviors. But at that time, when she interacted with Paro, she improved her mood. And this is the case at the Children's Hospital in Stanford University. So they evaluated Paro for the patient, inpatient children. Some are like cancer patients. And the interaction with Paro improved pain and anxiety. Yeah, this one, pain and anxiety. And in Italy, they use Paro for the training of the social skills of the children with autism or Down syndrome. As for this video, this is the case of Down syndrome. Of course, the Paro can improve their mood and calm them down, but also therapists use Paro for training their social skills. And this is the case in the US. In Boston, there is a Boston English School for children with autism. And let me show you one video.
Researchers in the United States are exploring other potential uses for the robot students. Over a 9-week period, she and her staff organized group sessions with 18 children aged 8 to 14 and observed how the kids reacted. At first, the children played freely with the robot as if it were a stuffed animal. Because they lack basic communication skills, they mistreat the animal when it fails to behave as they expect. During the 5th session, the therapist explained how to interact with Paro. Some children thought it was alive and were frightened of it. But little by little, their behavior started to evolve.
You'll see in the video that there's a lot of turn taking. Somebody's holding it, and then they want to share it with their friend. That's huge. That's very big.
After 12 sessions, most of the children were no longer afraid of Paro. They became more expressive, and through their newfound companion, they started communicating with each other and their teachers.
So, well, the nice thing about a robot is that it's your friend no matter what you do to it or don't do to it. So it's not threatening for our students. You know, oftentimes students with autism especially will struggle with socialization, and they make a mistake. A person may avoid them because the last time they were together, maybe they didn't speak to them, maybe they slapped them. But Paro is very forgiving, and Paro always gives everybody a second and third chance.
She was a principal of the school, and so that's one of the ways to use Paro for the children with autism. And we have some interesting cases in the case of ADHD children. For example, they are very active in some sense and walking around. And but when they interact with Paro, they can continue to interact with Paro, and they can stay at the chair or table, and their behavior became more calm down. Yeah. So of course, I'm not very sure how to evaluate such kind of improvement or progress of the kind of improvement. But if you have some research, I think that will be very interesting. And in the case of people who have developmental problems, they continue to have them. And also some people become dementia earlier than usual. And so this is the case in Connecticut. So she is less than 60 years old, but she had kind of developmental problems and also dementia, the cognitive disorder. But they sometimes have negative behaviors. But when they interact with Paro, or they improve their mood and reduce such negative behaviors. So as for Denmark, as I said, they use Paro for elderly people with dementia, but also they use Paro for people with brain damage, from innate or people who got damaged by traffic accident, like a car or airplane and some others. And also they use people with mental disorder. And majorly, Paro has been used to calm them down. So Paro improves their mood and also calms them down. Then they improve their behavioral problems. And Paro can be used for the cancer patients. So this is the case of the University of California, Irvine, and also Long Beach Memorial Hospital. So they use Paro for cancer patients during chemotherapy. And it takes about 3 to 5 hours. And it's very hard for them because of side effects. And but the interaction with Paro reduced pain, fatigue, anxiety, and so on. And that can be the same for the cancer children. It's 90 degrees. You have to do this. So there's a boy, and he has cancer. And now he's having the treatment of chemotherapy. But while interacting with Paro, he can keep his good smile. So he doesn't feel the negative side effect. And in Japan, as I said, not only individuals bought Paro as pet, and it's good for healthy aging. So it's for prevention of becoming some psychological issues, or like even maybe like dementia. But in the case of Alzheimer's disease, let me show you a video. So he is in Italy, and he's always screaming in that manner because of the anxiety. And he has Parkinson's disease too. Now therapist brought Paro and gave it to the patient. First, he stopped screaming and started to talk to Paro. Usually, he cannot communicate with others, but when he does his Paro, he comes down and he talks to Paro and also therapist. And then he expressed what he has problem inside, or what is bad or something. Then gradually, of course, therapist understood what he is feeling, and also gradually the patient improved his mood. Now he has a smile. And at that time, the therapist wanted to calm him down in order to take him to lunch. And as for this video, it was not the first time for the patient to interact with Paro. So he knew Paro. And also, as for the therapist or caregivers, when they need to calm him down before lunch, dinner, or bathing, they bring Paro and calm him down and do the next. And it takes only a few minutes. But before having Paro, they gave psychotropic medication to the patient. And after you started to use Paro, they stopped using medication. And in the case of psychotropic medications, as you may know, so it takes about 30 minutes to 45 minutes to work. And in the case of him, he was on a wheelchair. And because of side effect, when he becomes sleepy, he may have a risk of falling from wheelchair. So after giving medication, the caregiver has to be with the patient for some like 30 minutes or 45 minutes. But in the case of Paro, it works only in a few minutes or like 5-10 minutes. So it's very quick, much quicker than medications. And Paro's effect continues. Yeah, later I'll talk about randomized control trials. But in the result of the randomized control trials, the medication works about 3 hours. But Paro worked about 5 hours. Paro's effect continued 5 hours. And next one is wandering. Sorry, they are all senior people. The mechanism or effect is the same, from children to elderly people. So she was walking around, so she has wandering or loitering. And the therapist now picked up a patient and gave it to the lady. And the lady started to interact with Paro. It's dark, but she has a nice smile. And through interaction with Paro, she improved her mood, and also she improved her anxiety or some problems. Then she can stay at the table. She don't have to go for wandering or walking. So we can use Paro for such kind of behavior management. And this is the case of speech recovery. So elderly people who have dementia tend to become aphasia, like a speech problem. And it's because of the some damage in some portion of the brain. But there are a lot of remaining portions. And the interaction with Paro can improve the brain activities at the remaining portions. And then in this case, this was in Denmark. So there is a lady, she's interacting with Paro. So she was originally from Eastern Europe and immigrated to Denmark. And before becoming Alzheimer's disease, she spoke two languages, original language and Danish. But after becoming dementia or Alzheimer's disease, she couldn't speak Danish, only the original language. So she couldn't communicate with others at the facility. But when she interacted with Paro, she talked to Paro in Danish. And at that time, she can communicate with others in Danish. But unfortunately, when we removed Paro, she couldn't speak Danish again gradually. So it's not fixing. But as I said, so there are some broken portions by dementia, but there are remaining portions. And in her case, there are speech engine and two dictionaries. And the Danish dictionary was disconnected from speech engine because of dementia. But she still had connection to original language. But when she interacted with Paro, some remaining portion was activated. Then such activation reconnect the Danish dictionary and speech engine by detour or directly. We are not sure. But if there is a kind of training or rehabilitation, there is possibility to create new connection or recover the connection. So we haven't tried it, but I think there is a possibility because of the plasticity of the brain. So actually, I took those pictures, and I have seen the phenomena. And we have many other similar cases. So not only in Denmark, but in Germany, Japan, even in the US. So a lot of people stopped speaking for several years, or even more than 10 years. But they suddenly started to talk to Paro and recover their speech. There are many cases. And I talked this to the pharmaceutical companies, and they are very surprised. So because medication cannot have such kind of functions. So I think it's one of the ways to use Paro for rehabilitation. And Paro has been used in many countries like Denmark, France. Yeah. And in the UK. And in the UK, the National Health Service, that is the public hospital group, entire the US, UK. So they evaluated the cleaning procedure of Paro. So they had swab test and also ATP test. So they put the bacteria on the Paro's fur on purpose. And in the UK, they have regulation at the hospitals. So at the area, like 10 centimeter, that 4 inch by 4 inch area, the number of bacteria should be less than 30. And if we count the number of the bacteria on keyboard or doorknob, there may be several hundred. So the Paro's have to be cleaned to be used at hospitals. And they cleaned the Paro's fur by disposable wipe for disinfection. So it's a cleaner wipe. In the US, it is not available, but you can use PDI wipe or some PDI wipe or some wipe for disinfection. And then 2 minutes of cleaning made the Paro's fur almost completely clean. So 0 or 16 in the area of the like 4 inch by 4 inch area. And then so at the Nebraska University, they started to use Paro at the pediatric ICU, and they have more strict regulation, or more strict to the kinds of the bacteria. So because they are afraid of MRSA, so they also evaluated the cleaning procedure by swab and ATP test, and they found it was fine. And then now they started to use Paro at such severe conditions. I skip those slides. So in Texas, University of Texas and Baylor Scott and White, that is medical group, they had a randomized control trial on Paro for dementia. there were 61 people at 5 dementia care units, and they divided them into 2 groups, with Paro and without Paro. As for without Paro group, they had ordinary care. And as for with Paro group, people interacted with Paro 20 minutes, 3 times a week for 3 months, like 12 weeks. And as a result, with Paro group improved anxiety, depression, pain, and stress significantly. Also, the group reduced the medications for like anxiety, behavior management, pain, and so on. And as I said, the effect continued, Paro continued the effect 2 hours longer than the medication. At the dementia care unit, they spent about $1,500 US per person per month for medications. So if we can reduce a lot of medications, especially psychotropic medications, we can reduce cost and also side effect. So that's very good. So there are more details. They also measure the GSR, galvanic skin response, pulse oxygen, and pulse rate. And the red line is the Paro group. So they always have kind of better result than ordinary care group. And now more and more elderly facilities started to use Paro in the US too. And last year, the Medicare started to accept reimbursement when people are diagnosed as like dementia, cancer, PTSD, Parkinson's disease, brain injury, some others. And if they have pain, depression, anxiety, and or like behavioral issues, there are some CPT codes. CPT codes to prescribe biofeedback therapy with Paro. There are some kinds of codes. So, for example, this is the kind of good CPT code for biofeedback therapy with Paro by therapists. And so Medicare accepts the reimbursement for the cost of the biofeedback therapy with Paro, not only at hospitals or like institutions. So as you know, there are Part A and Part B. And so in the case of Paro, so both Part A and Part B accept reimbursement. So Paro can be used at hospitals, skilled nursing, hospices as institutional care or service. But also at home health service accept the usage of Paro. Yeah, there are many types of. For example, Paro can be prescribed for rehabilitation after people who had a stroke. So yeah, there are many ways to use Paro. And this is the case in Japan though. So she had dementia and also kind of problem of swallowing. But when she started to interact with Paro, she accepted Paro very good way, and she talked to Paro and sang to Paro. So she moved to her throat, and she drank her saliva, and gradually, so she improved her muscle around the throat. Then she started to eat jelly food, and so she had a kind of tube from nose, so she couldn't eat by herself. But after the treatment with Paro, she started to eat something. Jelly food by herself. So she didn't need the tube. And Paro can be used for end of life. So the lady, she's dying, and but it's at her home, and the right person is a nurse. And while stroking Paro, she died actually. But it is in that condition, so she reduced her anxiety or and pain, and she was as like sleeping, so she died. Yeah, I skipped many slides. Okay, so if you visit the webpage of Paro or parorobots.com, you can find some more information. And also, we have training videos. They are like about 1 hour and 7 minutes. But the main targets are case of elderly people with dementia. But still, the videos have a lot of information about how to use Paro and what we can expect to have some therapeutic effect. Thank you very much.
guess different patients may need a different Paro and with different behaviors. So my question is, as research, is how can we program it to change the behavior for target different patients? So is there a platform you provide and we can use them?
Yeah, so as a kind of practical situation, it's very difficult to prepare many Paros. So Paro, as I said, Paro has learning functions. So if Paro is given to each patient, so each Paro has different characters. And then Paro has more adaptability to the patient or person to have better effect, because Paro will be accepted more by the patient. But as a kind of research, actually, we organized the users meeting in Denmark and also in Japan, and we got feedback from practical users, especially therapists or such people who intensively use Paro. And they gave us a lot of information on how to improve Paro to have therapeutic effect more. For example, in the case of elderly people with dementia, Paro should be patient. That means if they do something bad to Paro, and if Paro show the negative reaction to the patient, so that may excite the elderly people with dementia to be worse. But Paro should not express a lot of negative behaviors. But in the case of children with autism or developmental problems, for example, if therapists want to use Paro for training social skill, Paro should show the negative reactions. Because if they do something bad to Paro, and if Paro doesn't show negative action, so the therapist cannot teach them. But if Paro shows the negative reaction, then the therapist can say, oh, you shouldn't do that, or something like that. So depending on the purpose of usage of Paro, of course there should be some difference in the characters.
So rather basically a training process, and you don't release the platform for the developers, let's say, try to change the program, so you're not allowed to do that.
No, it's very complex, so yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
You said there was the 9th generation.
Yes.
Do you have a 10th on the way?
Yeah, actually, ninth generation is really, it has very good balance between like technology and like therapeutic effect or the usage, practical use, some others. Yeah, so even without having improvement of 9th generation, I think we can use Paro for many years actually. Mm-hmm. But now we are developing, we don't say 10th, but a kind of modified 9th generation or improved 9th generation to be for the European market. So they have very strict regulations for medical device. And we are coping with such regulations. And that part has slightly different function inside. Appearance is the same, yeah. Yes.
What's the battery life as far as once it's charged? Is it?
Yes, so the Paro has a lithium-ion battery, and it takes about 2 hours to charge the battery from empty. And Paro works about 5 to 8 hours once it becomes full. So at the facilities, during daytime, people use Paro when they need to use Paro. And at night, they charge the battery. So it's like 1 day rotation. Mm-hmm. Yeah. In the case of individuals, sometimes they don't use intensively. So like once or twice a week, so they charge the battery. They are fine.
Well, you said about 10 years. No, it's not like a phone battery where the battery goes that loses charge and all that over.
Yeah, for the facilities, yeah, we have there's a company actually, Paro Robots US in Itasca, Illinois. So, and they have kind of extended warranty program or leasing to own program. As for the leasing to own program, it's $200 per month for 3 years. And it comes with 3 years warranty and also twice of maintenance. So every year, so the user send back to Paro clinic in Chicago, Itasca. Then they check, health check of Paro, and also clean the file, then return to the customer. Of course, if there is any problem, they tell what is the problem and ask to fix it.